the tail wagging the dog. When I'm swimming, I shouldn't see the tail wagging the dog. When I'm squatting, I shouldn't see these wobbles in the spine. That should be rigid. So as we start to solve these mechanical problems, what we're doing is we're organizing the spine first, making sure that we're organized at the primary engines of the hip and the shoulder second, and then if we see a deviation in the spine, that's what we fix first. That's the thing. So yes, you may have to squat higher and lighter, we understand, but you're not actually squatting or performing what we're trying to do. You are just, writing checks that your body can't cash. So that's sort of what the single joint rule is. We want to put those flexion and extension loads and avoid the hinge loads that we see that are so damaging to the spine and leak so much pain. The sort of laws of torque, I think, was the next piece.
Yeah.
And what we know is that the body is designed to create stability with rotation, especially in the primary engines of the hip and shoulder, but also through all of them. And the example is a collapsed arch tends to impinge the foot. But if you screw your feet into the ground like they're on dinner plates, your arch comes back alive, you unimpinge your ankle, the Achilles tracks, right, and you end up in a good position. Well, the same thing happens with the knee and even in the hip and the shoulder, kind of the same examples down. So if you're listening, imagine if you slump your shoulders in. If I slump my shoulders in, what that basically does, watch what happens to your hands. It collapses your hands. And so one of the reasons we're seeing all of this carpal tunnel and RSI dysfunction in people is that we adopt this pattern at our desk when my shoulders round, which challenges my nervous system, but then I also collapse the physical tunnel that is my wrist. Because I internally rotate, the tunnel flattens. If I externally rotate, get myself into a mechanically stable position, I automatically will reclaim a normal tunnel and I don't flatten and challenge those nerves further. So, imagine that every cue we basically see around the gym, I feel like can sort of be divided into two categories. The first category is stiffness category. Squeeze your butt, get tight, belly in, big breath, right? Belly button, sphincter, head through. These are all cues around organizing the spine. And the second cue is about this rotation. And specifically, we talk about, break the bar, knees out, armpit forward, my good catch position. What people have really figured out around technique is that they're coaching positions that create mechanical stability. So if you take your fist and put it inside your shirt and pull on it, you'll never get it very tight. But if you wind it up like a candy, it gets very stiff very fast. And that's basically what's happening in your joint capsule. That's why you have a rotator cuff in your hip and a rotator cuff in your shoulder. So when we say screw your feet into the ground, or if you're bench pressing, break the bar, when I break the bar, what I really am doing is creating a torque force. When I teach kids to tackle with their thumbs up and elbows in, I'm putting the shoulder into a mechanically stable position. And so everyone should identify that the opposite of that, if I do a push-up and my shoulders flare out, I'm basically putting myself into a mechanically disadvantageous position, and that's why I ended up with a torn rotator cuff and an impinged shoulder. So I go from stable to unstable. And I think when people have that sort of concept of this rotational stability, which no one really talked about in explicit terms, it was all couched in the language of coaching. And then, in physical therapy, we assess range of motion. I need to have the thumb back to have full range of motion. Well, that's really about saying that you're not full range of motion if you put your arm over your head. You're full range of motion if you can have the thumb all the way back, express the rotation, and arm up overhead. That's normal range of motion. So I think what's happened is we haven't really given people the language of what full range of motion is. If you squat down with your feet together, all the way down to the ground, like you're having by a fire, feet together, heels on the ground, you'll notice that your knees go out. The knees going out automatically is your body rotating the ankle into a stable position and creating stability in the hip. Standing position in yoga is called Tadasana, feet straight, screwing the feet into the ground. Concept is why when you read Thomas Meyer's anatomy trains, there are these spiral lines of fascia in the body that automatically cause this. And so if you lay down at the beach, I know you're in the UK, but there are these places with sun called the beach. And if you lay down and your feet fall out, what you're seeing is you're unwinding those patterns automatically. That's why we stand with feet straight. So that's the second rule.
Cool. And to, I guess, sort of think about wrapping this this podcast up, everything that we've talked about so far is obviously sort of exercise performance or enhancing performance.
No. This is how to like be a human.
Oh yeah. I was coming onto that, and it's bringing movement back into it, because one of the things I sort of talk about is everyone knows exercise, but very few people know movement. And
that's right.
In some
That's brilliant.
ways, there can be, depending on how the exercise is taught. Obviously, there's a very big difference between exercise and movement. And with regards to performance,
let me jump in for a second, because what we do is we say, okay, you've got this position down, you understand it, great. We're going to challenge it now, and we're going to challenge it with cardiorespiratory load, speed, actual physical load, right, and metabolic demand. So do it while you're breathing hard, do it for multiple reps, do it when it's heavy, and do it fast. And all of a sudden you're going to see that you can't do it or you can do it. And so we're using the variables of training to challenge robustness of position. And that's crucial. If you just feel like you want to breathe really hard, go to an exercise bike and blow yourself up. Because there's very little damage that can actually happen. Over the long haul, your hips will get tight and you'll trash your low back. But if you just need to feel like you're going to vomit and you want to feel unconscious and do it, go to the exercise bike. And that's why physicians are like, go get an exercise bike. You'll breathe hard, you'll get all sweaty. People love to go to these spinning classes. We have Soul Cycle in the United States. People are mad for it. It's low skill and very low risk of injury. There's no movement involved. But understand that, as a human being, it's okay to put the skill back in exercise training. And the problem is, we've said is, hey, go run for fitness. Well, you run like crap. And that's why you're getting injured, because we're not making that about skill, right?
Absolutely. So what we're, I guess, trying to bring to the people is movement is the foundation. Once we've mastered the movement, then we can start throwing load on top. Then we can start throwing duration on top. And then we can start, getting the cardiovascular challenge and the burn and, whatever else people tend to search for when they do go to a trainer or go to a coach or go to a gym on their own. So it's really movement, and then throw on top your exercise and your performance, because I'm sure Kelly can vouch for this. Mastering the movement will only enhance your exercise, your performance, and I would imagine also reduce your risk of injury. I guess that's fair to say.
It has to be, because you're functioning the way you're supposed to be functioning, and you're going to be 110 years old whether you like it or not. We're living in this modern age. There are exercise choices that we can make, right, that have low movement skill. Pushing a prowler, right, pushing a weighted sled is pretty low skill, right? Carrying some kettlebells as you walk, very low movement skill. Doing some weighted step-ups, pretty low. Still, maybe challenge, but you go up and down stairs a lot. But what I'm saying is, and you're saying, is that there's a lot of, if you just need to go breathe hard, I can have you tow one of the sleds around, tow one of the tires around my gym. You're going to blow up and feel like you're dying, but we haven't taught you any skill. So don't confuse exercise with movement practice. And people, I hear a lot of people say, oh, it's movement. I'm like, show me what movement you mean, because when I see you squat and your knees butterfly in and out, that's not good movement. And your point is exactly right. Just because you're squatting doesn't mean you're doing it right. And so around CrossFit, for example, one of the conversations that we had a lot, Greg Glassman, the founder, would just pull his hair out. He's like, look, we're arguing about things, but you're not even squatting yet. You're not deadlifting at all. You deadlift every day. You're not practicing this. What are we talking about? But now people are. We are deadlifting. We are swinging. So now we can be a little bit more refined and nuanced in our conversations. I love that dissociation. Exercise does not necessarily have a movement component, but it should.
Yeah. And that only comes from teaching trainers and seeing and listening to their conversations in the classroom and in the gym and watching things like that. And, it's quite a stark understanding and seeing it every day and things like that. And it's just trying to bring that movement back. Because there's two questions I always ask anyone that I meet, be it in the classroom or be it out. And I say, can you walk? And they'll say, of course I can walk. Everyone can walk. And then I'll say, well, okay, answer me this question. I say, can you walk properly? And then they tend to stare at me with a little bit of a blank face, or I'll use a squat, or I'll say arm overhead, or anything like that, and they just say, "Can you do it?" Yes, of course. And then, "Can you do it properly?" I haven't got a clue. And it's just a very easy way to help people understand that movement is different from just doing a thing, putting an arm over a head.
Well, that's right. And I know you can go shovel concrete or shovel rocks or sit at the desk. I know you can, but eventually you can't. But the problem is, if you do it correctly, you can do it indefinitely.
Yeah.
You have to come out unharmed. You have to come out unharmed. And what we really feel like is we've solved the conundrum of the physiology. It's really known to us. And we know what the best position is when you jump and land. I mean, we teach kids to jump and land with their feet together. It protects their knees and their ankles. So as soon as your feet spread, and if you're jumping up on a box and stepping up and down and your feet are collapsing, your knees coming in, that's the problem. So fix it. So I can put a bunch of fires out for you. I can mobilize your quad, and you come and see me, and I unglue your posterior tib and restore your range of motion in your knee, and I'm a ninja. But how'd you get there in the first place? You weren't born like that. And you got there because you did thousands of reps in a bad position. So, what we did was define mobility as you got to have the motor control and technique, and you've got to have the biomechanics. And mobility is the motor control and the biomechanics. And I can give you one, but you got to have both.
Brilliant. So I think the general sort of overview, the consensus summary, whatever you want to call it, from this podcast can be learn movement, whether you're a mum at 3, whether you're an 80-year-old, or whether you're a high-performance athlete that is training for world championships, whatever it may be. It's really look at the movement, really look at the skill, and save the spine, use the hips, I guess.
That's right. There you go.
I guess I can sum it up like that. It's a shame we had to talk for an hour. We could have just done it in 2 minutes like that, and it would have been done.
Well, it really is that simple. I mean, what's the problem? Why did you bend your back in half when you picked that up? I don't understand. But you can spend the rest of your life practicing not bending your back when you pick it up.
Yeah, cool. Well, I think I've used up enough of your time now. We've had a good conversation. We've explored a few avenues, and I hope for the listeners it's been useful. Any former students out there, listen to this. Remember what I said in the classroom, because it all works. And for anyone on YouTube who's listening in from anywhere in the world, learn movement. So many thanks to Kelly for coming on the podcast. Maybe sometime in the future we could talk about some other things. I know you've got a book. I don't know if it's out in the UK yet, but is it not Born to Run? That's another book, isn't it?
It's called Ready to Run. It's actually out October 21st is when it hits, and it should be out in the UK at the same time. We took the same ideas that, hey, you've got to be able to fix these adaptations, errors, hydration, sleep, your compression, and then you've got to have some standards about range of motion and tissue quality, and then you're set up to be able to go learn to run. Because running is a skill, and you probably need to be taught. I mean, who taught you how to run? Probably no one. Well, we've got really excellent resources for you, but you're not even ready for it.
Yeah, sure. Brilliant. So maybe we'll come back and talk about that. I don't know
what
the schedule's like, but we can maybe sort something out. So many thanks for coming on. For you this afternoon, for me, obviously this evening, and for anyone listening, whatever part of the day it may be. So many thanks, Kelly.
Pleasure.
It's been good. Brilliant.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks a lot. Speak to you soon.
Cheers, man.